Hey everybody, it is Tuesday, November 2nd, and welcome to this week's De-JOE-tional. This is our midweek devotional that I bring to you from my home usually, so we have a different setting than church, and I'm glad that you are joining me this week. My message this week is on taking care of your house, and it's piggybacking off of Pastor Steve Livengood's message from Sunday's healing service, which, by the way, was one of the best worship services I've ever been part of. If you weren't there on Sunday, or you didn't get a chance to watch online and haven't had a chance yet, I encourage you to do so. You can go to our church's Facebook page or YouTube page or follow the links that Barb sends out and watch this service. Pastor Steve Livengood delivered the message. Pastor Jay helped officiate, as did Pastor Bill Pyatt, and it was just a very emotional, uplifting, inspirational, and much needed service for many of us individually, definitely for us as a church family. So I want to thank pastors for putting that together, and thank you for everyone that participated in that service. Like I said, if you haven't had a chance to watch yet, I encourage you to do so. But in Pastor Steve's message, he talked about taking care of your house. And I was over on the tables on the side, and I was on my phone, and I'm sure some of you were probably thinking I was on Facebook or texting. Not this time. Sometimes, I'll be honest, that's true, but not this time. This time I was typing in notes on my phone. And I got to thinking about our own homes and taking care of our own houses and all the things that go into the upkeep and management of our houses. And today at our house was a perfect example. We had carpet cleaners come, and you guys all know we have 3 dogs, and they do what dogs do. They track stuff in, and they have the occasional accident, or they puke for no reason. And yeah, they do. So we go through all kinds of carpet cleaner on that, and periodically we have the carpets cleaned, professionally cleaned. So after they left, Susan says to me, you keep the house cleaner than I ever kept it. Now, I'm going to give you all a second to stop laughing. Barb probably had to pause it so she could, till she gets done laughing, because, yeah. Those of you that have walked by my office at church know how funny that really is, because it's a mess. Anyway, so it's only highlighted because, as many of you know, she's got a hurt arm right now. She injured herself and can't do much. So I've had to step up and do more around the house. So it just looks like I'm doing more. Well, I mean, I am doing more, but it looks like I'm doing it better. That makes sense? Anyway. And I got to thinking today about all the stuff that goes in to keeping the house up. I mean, it's just the 2 of us now. Well, and the dogs, but there's a lot. So think about your houses. Think about everything that you do and your family does to keep it up. Now, as you're going through your mind, what happens if meals don't get fixed? What happens if no one vacuums or dusts? What happens if no one does the dishes or washes clothes? What happens if nobody goes and buys groceries or puts gas in the car or changes the oil? What happens if nobody does the yard work or takes out the trash? Does all that stuff just not get done? No. Somebody will end up doing it. And usually that somebody will gripe and complain while they're doing it. And it's not a very pleasant experience. Is that going on at Godfrey First? I feel like I talk about this all the time. And I know Pastor Jay has, and Pastor Steve has, and he talked about it again in a little bit in his message. Are we just sitting back and waiting for somebody else to do what God's calling us to do? Are we sitting in the pews or at home even and saying, somebody else will take care of it? Somebody else will do it. What happens if they don't? What happens if nobody steps up and helps up with VBS? What happens if nobody steps up and sings in the choir? What happens if nobody steps up and helps serve as liturgists or as greeters? What happens if nobody helps with the rummage sale? What happens if the grass doesn't get mowed? What happens if, all this stuff, what happens if that stuff doesn't get done? Somebody will end up doing it, and they'll gripe and complain about it. Does that make for a very pleasant experience for other people? Sure does not. Just like our own homes, everybody is expected to pull their own weight. God did not call me or Jay or Steve or Don or Mike or Marcia or Mary Lou. He didn't just call them as individuals to bring people to Christ and Christ to people at Godfrey First. He called all of us. All of us. We are one church family. And just like our families at home, where we're expected to do our own part to keep the upkeep and management of our home going, God has called us to serve in the same way at Godfrey First. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. There's a lot of stuff being done, and people are griping and complaining while they're doing it. Not mentioning any names. But is God calling you to help serve? God called you to Godfrey First for a reason. Did He call you there to just sit in the chair for an hour on Sunday and go home? I don't think so. He may not have called you to serve on a committee, or He may not have called you to do yard work, pull weeds out in the prayer garden. He may not have called you to lead a Bible study or anything like that. But I'm pretty sure He didn't just call you to come and sit and leave. What can you do to help Godfrey First get its house in order? We all vowed to uphold our church by our prayers, our presence, our gifts, and our service. And I was reminded when I spoke about this a year ago, our witness was added. Prayers, presence, gifts, service, and witness. Some of us are pretty good at the presence. Some of us are pretty good at the prayers. Some of us are pretty good at the gifts. Some of us are pretty good at the witness. Some of us are pretty good at the service. God's called us to do all of them. All 5 things. So now's the time. Now's the time for Godfrey First to get in order. We've gone through our healing service. We have hopefully left some of the baggage that was keeping us from serving aside. And it's time to move forward. It's time to step up. It's time for us to be what God has called us to be. So where will you say yes? When will you say yes? How will you say yes? God's calling you to serve. Blessings, Godfrey First.